Hello guys, welcome to Daddy Share Space and welcome to my garage shop. So you can see here I've kind of rearranged things a little bit. I put the Kapex stand over here on my right, and the reason why I did that is because this is the side that I have an outlet on. On this side over here I don't have an outlet, so I decided to go ahead and switch and put the battery power, the KS60, on the left side of the shop and keep this one over here, and that way I can get different types of cutting setups or processes going if I want to use this one or if I want to use the other one. I also, since the outlet is over here, I went ahead and I put the 48 CT over on this side, and then down here below I actually have the CT Mini, which is the battery power. And then going back here, now right here I've got the Milwaukee table saw, and I kind of put it here because on the back side over there in the shop right now it's a bit of a mess. I got some of my DeWalt tools over there and my other Ryobi tools, and so I just felt like this is probably a pretty decent space to put this at this particular juncture. Now back here on the back, as you can see, I have the Festool table saw, and it's kind of set up, and they're kind of, you know, obviously going in different orientations. And it's actually facing this way, so I can actually reach over here and grab this hose and plug it in and use it with this particular setup when I want to. Now, for like if I'm working with bigger sheet goods, what I do is I take the whole MFT table and turn it around this way. I pull this table saw out and put it all the way on the opposite end toward where you are, where the camera is, and then that way I can bring materials in from the garage door and I can run them back this way to process in that particular fashion. And then I'm trying to come up with a solution, because right now I have a cross cutting or a finer tooth blade in this particular table saw, but I switched to a ripping blade in my DeWalt, and right now I have a ripping blade in the Festool because I was testing it out, and I haven't switched it back to the fine tooth, but I probably will eventually. And so I'm trying to come up with a workflow where I don't have to do a whole lot of moving things around. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. I still have a ton of tools down here on the bottom and on the base here that I need to try to figure out, you know, how to make some more French cleats for. Back over on this portion of the wall, which you can't see, I'm going to actually make some clamp storage so that I can hang those up and get those from laying on a horizontal surface. I have a lot of things that I want to do, but let me kind of expound a little bit on my workshop dilemma. So right now it's 5:52. I get off around 4 p.m. and it takes some time obviously to get home, so I usually get home just before 5, and I can only do woodworking tasks where I'm turning on machines, firing them up out of respect for the neighbors until about 7 p.m. So that gives me, if I push it, about 2 hours of shop time. So a person was basically commenting and bringing up the fact of, you know, some of the ways that I go about building, kind of leaving things a little bit over, you know, like basically not measuring and cutting before I actually build something. And not really an excuse, but basically, so my wife was actually using these plastic rods that she would just stick down in the soil, and she would put like 6 of them there, and she would use her the shade cloth to try to cover up the plants to protect them from the sun. And on many of occasions the wind would blow and kind of blow it over, and basically, you know, she was worried about the plants. So she kept coming to me saying, well, can you just basically fasten a block of wood to the side and drill a hole down so I can put these plastic sticks in there so that they will stay upright. And I examined the plastic sticks, and they basically didn't seem to be very robust. I felt like with a strong wind they would just snap off or bend over. And so I thought about just basically using the redwood lumber, which I used, and doing something that was a little bit more permanent and structured. And when I went to examine the planter boxes, I realized that, you know, I didn't really do a great job on the planter boxes. And so there was a lot of parts that were cut out of square, miter cuts that didn't look that great. However, it's a functional planter box, right? It's not like I'm making these for sale, and it's part of my learning journey. So when I realized that, I was like, well, you know, do you go ahead and put lipstick on a pig? You know, I didn't think that I should. And so I put the, you know, I just basically screwed in the post on the bottom, on the four corners. And I do understand what the person was saying when they basically was talking about how leveling the top and having it level basically with, you know, if you don't recognize that the ground may not be level, that things could look skewed and be out. And I do get that, and so that's actually something that I didn't consider as I was building. Actually, it's something that I'm trying to figure out how to solve in the shop by, you know, all the time, simply because the garage floor is not level. And so if I put, say, the table saw on, let's say, the back end of the station, it flows smoothly. But if I put the table saw on the other end and I go this way, sometimes it may hit because the floor is lower on, you know, the side where the camera is. So when I think about that, like a lot of times I see people make things online and make projects, and they make things look a little bit more simple than they actually are. Because when I go to actually do it, I'm like, well, wait a minute, how did they solve this problem, or how did they solve that problem? Since I don't have any kind of formal training, everything I have to figure out through trial and error. And I'm just not ashamed of showing that growth process in the videos that I make. And, you know, I'm trying to, basically I'm just being myself. So I understand, well, let me say it like this. I've been a registered nurse for 20 plus years, and it took me a long time to get to the skill level that I have now. So I do understand and respect this woodworking journey to know that I'm not going to be able to just snap my fingers and get really good. I actually had a commenter mention one time that, you know, give it 10 years and then you'll, you know, start to do something. And as I've been messing around with my tools, I kind of feel like that's actually true, that this is not something that's going to happen like overnight or very quickly, for multiple reasons. The main one being that if I work 5 days a week and I only have 2 hours a day to do any kind of woodworking, and that's not taken into account if I have other things that need to be done, which means that I'm not even going to be able to do that every day. And then let's go further still to think about the weekend, where, you know, sometimes I may take the whole Saturday or the whole Sunday and tinker about in the shop. But there are times when I have to take the time and, you know, spend with my wife and children. So I don't have the volume of time that, you know, someone that probably, you know, either does this as a profession, or, you know, because I'm not a young man. However, I do have young children. You know, my oldest just became a teenager, and I have 2 other daughters. And so trying to juggle being there for them, but then also trying to learn not just woodworking from the start, like, you know, I have no formal training, so I'm just doing things out of the top of my head, you know, and trying to get to the end result. And I'm making a ton of mistakes, but I'm also learning too. It may not look like that on the other side of the camera, but I don't, you know, I kind of understand, at least from my standpoint, I understand why. And I'll just share a little bit with you so that you could kind of understand where I'm coming from. So, I recently canceled my SketchUp account simply because the price went from $299 a year up to $350 a year. And I just felt like that because I wasn't able to sit down in front of the computer enough to actually really get proficient at it. Now, I know that would be a better way. It would save me a lot of money on material if I design things in SketchUp first. However, you know, take into consideration that I decided, this is my choice, I decided to start a YouTube channel, and I decided to do this woodworking thing all at the same time, while juggling maintaining the things that I do as the man of the house, but then also managing my cars. So it's like I'm stirring this huge pot with a whole bunch of different types of tasks in it. You know, when you make videos, you have to figure out, camera angles. You have to figure out, if you look even right here in this video, you'll see that I'm going to switch from one camera to the other camera, and you'll see the color science from one clip to the other is not consistent. That's because I'm still learning my cameras. I'm still learning how to do sound. I'm still learning how to edit. I'm still learning how to do everything I need to do. So in one hand, I'm trying to juggle this making video ball. And then in the other hand, the whole just YouTube by itself, I'm trying to juggle that by basically responding to, the certain comments and such. But then I'm also trying to do the woodworking, and then you mix in my regular responsibilities and obligations as a husband and a father. So I haven't figured it out yet how to get a seamless and consistent workflow. And sometimes I just have to take a step back and just let everything hit the ground, because it's very much, sometimes it feels like I'm trying to go, let's say, north, east, south, and west all at the same time, which means I'm not getting very far. However, when I go back and I look over time, I do see that I have gone far, because when I go back and I look at some of my earlier videos and some of the things that I was talking about and even doing, I look back and I see that I have grown and I've learned, maybe not as much as, some would expect, and not as much as I would have hoped, but because I have so much time ahead of me, and I don't mean like that I know how long I'm going to live, but more so as I collect all the tools that I want to have in my shop, there's just that leeway, there's that time. So as my daughters get older and they decide they don't want to, spend as much time with their parents, that's going to open up a lot more time for me to be out here in the shop. As my wife, develops her hobbies, whether it be embroidery and different things. Right now, our main jobs are taking up so much of our time. So this, in a way, like to most people, they would say, okay, this is just an extravagant hobby. And I can't argue that point 100%, but at the same time, I don't really see something that you have to do as a hobby. And of course, a person doesn't have to have all these tools. That's not what I'm saying. So don't, go crazy about that. But what I am saying is, when you take different tools, like say for instance, this drywall sander here, right? This, I can't even remember how much it costs when I bought it, but the bottom line is, when you take something like this, it's people, professionals that use this, or people that are like a little bit above a professional, or someone that had a big drywall job that use a tool similar to this, they already know that it is more convenient and faster to use this tool than it would be to use this tool. This tool here is substantially cheaper than the one I have on the table. However, this particular tool is not going to make the job as enjoyable. It's not going to do as great of a job in a shorter time. And so when I look at stuff like this, I'm basically weighing time versus money. So if I was to pay, say, a professional person to do some kind of drywall work for me, how much money is that going to cost? And if I subtract the cost of this tool from that amount, and I spend a little bit of time practicing, how much money will I save? Now, of course, I could use a regular hand sander to do the job, but as I've expressed before, I'm working with limited time. So what I'm weighing is, okay, at this particular season, I have a little bit more money than I have time. So let me try to, and unfortunately at this economic times, we have to consider the fact that, people are trying to make a living. Our GDP is based upon, people spending money and doing these things like this. I do spend a lot of money. You can see it here in my shop. However, when I'm spending money, I weigh things in different ways. Like, I have not been to a movie theater since my middle daughter was probably 2 or 3, and she's like 11 now. And there's reasonings behind that, but what I decided to do instead of going to the movie theater is I bought a projector. And I disciplined myself to wait until every movie that comes out the movie theater comes out on Blu-ray or DVD. I just cover my eyes, plug my ears, and when it comes out on Blu-ray or DVD, I purchase it. And then once I purchase it, I upload it to my Plex, and then I have a Netflix experience right here in my home. And you know, I haven't been to the movies in a long time, so I don't know how much it costs anymore. But that initial investment of buying that projector, I want to say it was over $1,000, I believe, when I bought that projector. But I bought that projector, you know, like 8-9 years ago, right? And it's still paying dividends today. It is still an amazing experience, you know, so I enjoy that more so now. Like, I don't have to go to the movie theater and deal with nobody else's personality. I don't have to deal with somebody coughing. I don't have to deal with the fact that if I need to go to the bathroom, not being able to pause the show. You know, you have to weigh the pros and the cons and the benefits. Now, it would take a lot of movie tickets to buy a typical projector. However, at that time, 9-10 years ago, I made that decision. And so it's been a compound positive decision, because since I buy all my own Blu-rays, DVDs, and all that, I don't do any kind of pirating. Just the past few days, our internet went down. It was down for like maybe 4 or 5 days. Like all through the holiday weekend, it was down. And so that means no Netflix, no Disney Plus, no Amazon Prime, none of those things. So what did I do instead? Well, because I have a NAS, a network attached storage device, that has my Plex library, which I spent a ton of time uploading to my NAS, I was able to have a Netflix-like experience with my own movie library. So you have the convenience of not having to get up and find the disc and put it in, but also, you know, combining that with my projector screen, I'm also able to, you know, watch it on a big screen. So it's a very nice experience. So what does that have to do with what I'm talking about here in the shop? Well, it's the same concept. You know, if I had the money, let me just be honest. If I had the money, if I was rich like that, I would just pay for pretty much everything. I would pay for people to wash my car, people to do my lawn, people to do every and anything. Maybe I'd even pay for somebody to take me to and from work. But the reality of the matter is, I'm not that wealthy. I don't make that much money where I can afford to pay that out. So, and I've had my share of very poor experiences where I've paid more than I should have. And then, or times where I went to go try to get a service and someone told me a price and I was like, yeah, I'm just not gonna pay that. And so what it's done is it's made me, combined with something I've already expressed on this channel, is the fact that I didn't want my kids to see me just playing video games all the time, because I could just go to work and take all my little extra money and just save it, you know, or invest it. Or I could do what I've done here and take a portion of that money and invest in me trying to develop some personal skills that I can, you know, help myself, help my wife, you know, help my kids. And if I become proficient at it, which, you know, I'm not saying I never will, but that's not necessarily the end goal. I'm on this path for the journey, and I would be very happy if I was able to get good enough to be able to build something to sell, but that's not the end goal. I'm not in the shop to say like, oh, let me hurry up and make my first project to sell to this person or that person. I'm more so in the shop because it's a constructive and productive thing to do. And for me personally, it has saved me money in different things that I've done. You know, I mean, think about, if you take a look at this 4-foot by 8-foot MFT that's in front of me, ask yourself how much it would cost for somebody to build that for you. You know, when you look at like those Rubio work benches or whatever, even the equipment itself and the wood is very, very expensive. And so if you're gonna get a professional to make that for you, you better have some pretty deep pockets. And even then, you know, everybody's quality is different, and I believe you're going to get a better experience if you have a good relationship with whoever is professional that you're working with. If you just call somebody up on, you know, through the, you know, some online ad or whatever, I don't, you know, it's kind of hit or miss if you're going to get a good experience. And, you know, personally, I don't really have time for that. You know, I have very little time. I have very little patience for people's foolishness. So I'll just cut to the chase. If I see a pathway for me to do something myself, I'm going to take that path. I'm going to walk down that road. Now, turning back to a little bit more about the shop and what I'm trying to figure out how to do is I want to use as many of the tools that I have in this shop that I have. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. And there's still other tools that I was like, well, that I want to kind of cram in here. Now, I do know I need to get rid of some tools and purge them. I just haven't figured out how I'm going to even do that yet. So right now, I just want to figure out a way to store all the tools in the current space that I'm in a way where I can actually get to them and use them. But then, you know, just to kind of give you insight into the way I'm thinking, I'm also trying to do that in a way where I want it to be usable and functional, meaning this space. But then I also want it to be a little bit nicer looking for the videos, right? If I have things set up kind of in a nicer way, I kind of feel like that's better for the video. So that's me thinking about the video side. And then, you know, like when I was working on the outside, the planter boxes, it was hot. It was super hot. It was over 100 degrees that day. And so I just wanted to get that job done and get out of the sun. And if you notice in the video, I didn't take really, I think I took one Festool tool outside. I just did it all with DeWalt and Milwaukee tools. And that's what I mean by, like, I'm working with my tools so that I can report back and say, I like this, I don't like that, after my experience of actually doing things with them. So the process here, you'll hear me say it probably time and time again. When I buy a tool, I will bring it into my shop. I will open it and do an unboxing and overview. It's not meant to be a review. And the reason for that is very simple. I'm working for people that are like myself. I watch people all the time on YouTube unbox things. I've had people just open up a tool, open up the box, no words, no captions, and just show a tool and just hold it around. Get like 1,000, 2,000 views, whatever the case may be. Well, let's look at that logistically. So in one hand, I'm trying to grow my skill set. And the other hand, I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel the best way that I can. And the way that I can, you know, kill two birds with one stone is obviously if I buy a new tool and I share that with people that are interested, that brings eyes to my channel, right? And then people can either go away or they could come back. And then somebody may actually be interested in a tool that I actually own in my shop. They can ask me a question and I can answer it if I know. And someone may be interested in something else I have in my shop, and I can, I can expound on that. And so, because I'm still using my DeWalt tools, my Milwaukee tools, now my Festool tools, my Makita tools, over time, I will build up experience, more knowledge, and the techniques will get better. You know, I do get bogged down by paralysis through analysis a lot, simply because, you know, when I think about using my Domino, for some reason I'm always thinking about making an outdoor project. And when I think about that, I'm like, well, you need to get the SIPO tenons, because the SIPO tenons, they resist rot. So what's the point of going out and buying redwood, right? That is wood that's more expensive than pine, but resists rot, so you don't necessarily have to treat it. I mean, you can, but you don't have to treat it. And so then, and you're going to put the tenons that are basically more like the pine as opposed to like the SIPO, which are what they're designed for. And so if I'm going to make a project, I'm not going to get up and just go all the way over to Woodcraft, because it's not like right down the street, to actually by some SIPO tenons. And most of the time when I look at something like a SIPO tenon, I'm thinking to myself, do I really need that now? And usually it gets kicked on the back burner for another tool experience that I would like to have here in the shop. Because the tool experience, it does multiple things. Number one, it does bring eyeballs to the channel, right? And it also is building out my personal experience, so that I can say, you know, there's a video that I'm so late on making, and I will make it, you know, eventually. I just always have to shift things around. And that video was like, back here I have a the TS60 track saw, and a person wanted me to do a comparison between that and the Makita, and kind of talk a little bit about which one would I choose, and even without pulling the tools out. So I want to do a pretty decent video. However, I'm always changing the shop, as you can see here, and a lot of times things get to be a bit cumbersome, so I'm not able to progress, and I have to decide, because I have such a small amount of time, I have to decide, can I do the whole job? Like right now, the way I have things set up is so I can do this video. Right? This is not, even though I can work on projects in this configuration, this is not the best configuration. Like if I'm going to cut down a sheet of plywood, this is not working, right? There's a mess back over there, and you know, if I want to use the table saw, this is not the best place for it, unless this setup is better for smaller projects. And when I think about smaller projects, I don't even know what I should be making. I'm just gonna be real, except for like maybe French cleat things, which I may go ahead. I've said that I was gonna start making French cleat videos, but then after saying it, I start to feel a bit, I don't know, like basically that's not a decent thing to do. Not that it's a bad thing to do, it's gonna help me because it'll help me to organize, but because it's a, you know, if you look at the French cleats that I've made, or tool holders that I've made, they're not great, you know what I'm saying, because they were like they were just first iterations to just get the tool up on the wall. So I just asked myself, will people sit through a whole bunch of bad French cleat holders until I get to a good one? I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. And then like how many, when I start to lay all the tools out around in the shop and start making these French cleat holders, because I don't start with an original design, that means I'm just kind of thinking out loud and actually acting out loud. So it's like, why did you do that? Why did you do this? Well, it's because I don't have a plan. I didn't make a plan ahead of time. And for me, it's sometimes hard to get a plan without gathering a ton of data. That's just the way my mind works. And what I mean by that is, when I look at my tool wall here and I say, okay, I've got a bunch of tools of different shapes and sizes. What is the best way for me to be able to organize these tools so that I actually A, use them, B, I keep them in decent shape, and I have to think about, is it a corded tool if it's a battery powered tool? If it's a corded tool, it needs to be near an outlet somewhere. One of my cameras just gave up the ghost on me. If it is a battery powered tool, then it needs to be, you know, in range of a charger. And then, as I've spoken many times, in this shop, I'm working with limited outlets, and I can't even plug in all my chargers at the same time and run a tool without tripping the breaker. So I have to be forward thinking. So remember, Monday through Friday, you're talking at maximum 2 hours a day to come out here, start to finish project, design, build, whatever. Sometimes it may take me 30 minutes, 40 minutes just to set up something, and then I go in the house. Or the other day, I actually cut down that irrigation fence that I had built in the front, and I spent the whole day, well, one day I spent the whole day cutting it down, dragging it inside the garage and cutting it up into smaller pieces. And then after I cut it up into smaller pieces, I spent another day planing the wood down back to its natural color, because I had treated it with a stain so that I can use it later in different projects. So you can see how my brain is over here, over there, over here, over there. In the meantime, throw in, you know, the car, break it down, and then I have to totally reconfigure and deal with that. Right now, I'm in the process. Some other things that I'm doing is actually, so, you know, many of you know, if you watch my channel, you know that we homeschool. And I've noticed that a lot of the modern cartoons, you know, for kids are, for me, a bit racy, a bit too much for younger minds. And so it brought me back to my old days when I used to watch stuff like G.I. Joe, Transformers, you know, He-Man, all of these things. So I went on Amazon and I bought a whole bunch of older cartoons, and I've been ripping those and putting them on my Plex so that we can sit down as a family and watch these shows together, like when we're having like a family evening, maybe playing Minecraft together. So that's something that I do. And sometimes I'll get up on a Saturday and we'll just do that all day long. You know, we'll just be sitting down together, we'll eat, we'll talk, we'll laugh, and we'll play the game together and be watching the show off to the side on the projector. And it's a good time. It's a good family time for us, right? Where no one's being hurt, harmed. We don't have to worry about the outside world causing us any problems. It's a very nice and peaceful environment. But that being said, so do I go and make a whole bunch of French cleat holders? Do I, you know, start working on the project where this back wall with the Festool sustainers? To me, it looks decent because, you know, you see all the Festool sustainers, your eyes kind of go to that. But my issue with this setup is it's not functional in the way that I want it to be functional. And I have seen some videos of some people. There's this one guy, I can't remember what his name is, but he actually has a setup. It's a smaller shop, but he has drawers that he pulls out that he built, and he's able to access a tool so he can pull out, you know, like a jigsaw and open the lid fully, take the jigsaw out, use it on his workspace or workstation, and then pull out the drawer, put it back in neatly. That's what I would like to get to. However, I have so much spare lumber in the shop, scrap lumber, and I'm like, I need to figure out how to make projects out of this and how to, you know, not just throw this wood away and waste it because it was money spent. And so I don't have a lot of plywood here in the shop. I have a few pieces back there. I have old drywall back there, which I don't know what I'm going to do with. But another part of my thought process is I want to take a conventional 2x4, and I may do this video this week, which I don't know how well it'll do. You know, I haven't done the video because I keep, you know, telling myself it's not a great video to make. But what I want to do is take a regular 2x4, because I have discovered that I can use either this table saw, if I put a ripping blade on here, or the DeWalt, which already has a ripping blade, and I can actually split a 2x4 if I run it along one side, flip it over and cut it down the other to make like, so a 2x4 is like 1.5 inches wide. So if I can make 2.75 or, you know, 3/4 inch pieces, or roughly that, and then run them through the planer to get them all the same thickness, then I can actually practice on a smaller scale making wood panels. Right? Because that's what people do when they make, you know, tables. They actually, laminate boards together. So I was like, well, I can do that. And so to me, I feel like it would be an excellent skill building exercise, because it would give me the opportunity to do a couple things. Number one, to be able to take just a simple piece of wood that I have here in the shop, like this, and turn around and make it into some kind of project. So, you know, obviously I would split the board down the center, and then I would plane both pieces, or joint and plane, and then bring those pieces back together to make a panel. Then I can use that panel to make anything else that, you know, that my heart desires, you know, basic boxes. I can use it to, like, if you take a look at this, this particular tool holder, which is nothing much, but that's plywood, right? If I could make a small panel like this out of 2x lumber, it's a lot of work for what it is. But remember, as I've expressed in many different ways, I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to grow, and what doesn't show up on camera is what I have learned. And that being the fact that when you look at plywood building versus regular solid wood building, whether it be softwood or hardwood, the softwood and hardwood, coming in, form factors like this, or, live edge wood requires the milling process of using a jointer and using a planer and all of these things to get your lumber squared so you can build proper projects. So I did invest in the Rikon jointer, which is a small benchtop jointer. I did invest in the DeWalt planer, but what I ended up, a problem that I ran into is because the Rikon jointer is smaller, I have to think about smaller projects. And that means it's going to take longer to make a project. Like if I do, split pieces of wood like this and make panels, that right there, that's probably an all-day affair for me. And by the end, I won't have made anything. I would just be the process of turning a 2x into a panel. I have to try to figure out, because remember, I am trying to do a YouTube channel here. I have to figure out how to make that valuable, how to make that something that someone watches. Because if I spend all day building something and someone watches 30 seconds of it and clicks off, was that a good use of my time? Of course not. Now, it could be a good use of my time as far as skill building, but remember, I'm not just doing one thing. I can build a project in the garage, or something, whether it be this ugly miter stand or even this MFT, and basically get 100, it's a fly, get like 100 and something views, and then I go buy a friggin' miter stand and get 2,000 views. Okay, so you can see the dilemma here, right? If I want to keep the channel growing, it at this point, and rightly so, it's not growing because I'm a great builder, right? That's something that's going to come over time. Now, a lot of people would say, you've got enough tools, sorry, it's a fly in here, you've got enough tools, why keep buying? Well, I mean, that's a simple, thing. As I'm doing stuff, I am learning, and fortunately, while learning, I'm also saying, oh, there's a better way to do this. Case in point, okay, I've got a small Rikon joiner. What can I do with that? I need to bring my projects down, make my projects smaller to fit the joiner. If I'm going to use, like 2x lumber, I need to make smaller projects. So that changes things for me. Everything needs to be smaller because I don't have a big joiner. Or it's going to take more steps to get to the same thing, because you're not going to run an 8-foot 2x4 or an 8-foot piece of wood across that Rikon joiner and get a great experience. The other thing that I run into, just to give you an example, my DeWalt planer. Now, I only have a rigid shop vac because basically, as I told you, I don't have a lot of outlets here in the garage. So without having 220, I can't run a big dust collection system. And I'm hesitant to buy one of those bigger dust collection systems that use the 120, because I'm already having a problem with plugging 2 different tools in at the same time. So, and a lot of those don't seem to be very good as far as cost, what you spend for what you get. I was looking at a Rikon with the filter system. I looked at the Harbor Freight option that a lot of people give, but then they're doing all this DIY stuff to keep the dust down. So I just use my regular rigid shop vac or my Festool vacuum. Now, what's the problem? Because I bought my DeWalt planer a long time ago, before I knew better, I did not get a helical head. And since I didn't get a helical head, when I use that planer, it basically just covers this place with wood chips everywhere, which means that, how do you make a video? You can make a video while you're actually doing the planing, but then afterwards you got to clean it up. I mean, I should have took a picture. I had mountains of sawdust in this garage and shavings that will not go through the rigid shop vac, the 2.5-inch port. So it's like, all right, I don't want to pay $2,000 for a 120 volt dust extractor, or, you know, something, you know, dust collection system, right? Only to realize I can barely run it because I can't plug in 2 tools at the same time. So I'm trying to work around that. Once I got figured out the dust collection for the Rikon, my rigid shop vac is able to keep up with the Rikon because it has a helical head. So that's put me in a position where I was like, okay, maybe I can do one of 2 things. I can buy a Shelix or Bird Shelix head to put in my DeWalt 734 planer. However, that's about $400 invested into that planer to make that upgrade. And that may work, that may do fine. However, if I do that, as opposed to just buying the Rikon that already has the head installed, which is $300 more if I did that option, I'm weighing the 2, because think about it. Yes, I can make a video of changing the planer head, but from my experience, a lot of these videos aren't doing that great. And that, if you think about that pathway, that's not getting me to my end goal, right? You guys are seeing me not grow as fast, you know, that fast as far as my woodworking skills, because I'm running into all these little micro blocks. Because if I use my planer, more than likely I'm not doing anything else that day because of the mess that it's caused. I mean, I've got, a pile of lumber back here that I ran through the planer, and it took quite a while to do that. And so that didn't leave a lot of time, especially when you add cleanup. It didn't leave a lot of time for me to do any kind of project. Whereas if I go buy a new tool, I can simply open it up, do the unboxing, done and done. Very quick, easy, to the point. I don't have to worry about, you know, actually building something. Anyways, guys, just rambling. Thanks for taking time to watch the video. See you in my next one. Take care.